Welcome to the Haunted Chapel. It's like church, but for metal. Here are your hosts, John Araya and Brittany Elliott.
Welcome back to the Haunted Chapel. I'm John.
Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Brittany.
Hi, how you doing? Thanks for tuning back in with us. It's been a little bit, so we're kind of, our schedule's not.
We've been working.
We're not on schedule. We're not like on any kind of schedule. We put these out when we can. We have the time because we're pretty busy down here.
Thank you all, everybody that gets tattooed and supports us at the Haunted Chapel and supports our art and giveaways and tattooing.
The tables.
We've given away a lot of cool tables to people that have entered the giveaway, so that's really cool. People are finally starting to pick them up. Come pick them up if you want.
Yeah,
our house is getting full.
Yeah, come get them. Come get them. They're kind of just sitting around like, all right,
right?
This table. I want to use them. We want to keep them because they're so cool.
Yeah, they're like little pieces of art. So follow Heavy Metal Tables at Heavy Metal Tables. On that note, little plug for the table business.
That's right.
Dun-dun-dun.
Yeah, so I've been pretty busy doing that.
Yeah,
and,
make it so that the weather's getting nicer, so I can finally get outside and like sand stuff and spray paint and work in the garage. That's super nice. So
yeah, it's getting nice now, finally.
Right, but we had the opportunity to talk to somebody super cool. It's been a couple of weeks now, but it was well. Shall we spill the beans on who it is?
Yes.
Well, very influential bass tech, just like Johnny.
Oh,
yeah.
Thanks, baby.
He is the God of Thunder's bass tech,
yes.
Michael Berger. He's awesome. I had the opportunity of just bumping into him on the Kiss cruise. I was getting a coffee, and he's like, "Hey, King Diamond," talking about my King Diamond tattoo, and told me about how he toured with Destruction back in the day on the Abigail tour, I believe it was. And anyway, we were just talking about metal. I didn't know who he was. Cool, cheers, yeah, coffee. So Kiss cruise takes off. Then I see him like giving out pics on stage. I was like, oh, I guess he works for Kiss. So anyway, we asked him to be on the podcast, and it turned out that he and Johnny have a ton in common are around the same age, and it was
it's a pretty
great.
cool story. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Really cool story. But without giving you guys too many spoilers, we're just going to go ahead and introduce our awesome friend, Michael Berger.
All right.
Sorry about the confusion there.
Hey, no problem. How you guys doing?
Good. Cool.
How you doing, man?
Great.
Yeah.
Had a good night last night. We went out for a nice dinner here in LA, and yeah, it was good. Early morning. I get up early lately, so
Good.
Hey, that's the best. Yeah, let's take advantage of the day, you know.
You get a lot more done.
Mm-hmm.
that's right.
Awesome.
Look at you in your little cage. I love it.
our little metal cave here, the Haunted Chapel.
Oh man. I tell my wife all the time, I'd like to get another, when I grew up, we all had our rooms, right? The posters and all the good stuff. And some people continue doing that. And I, at some point, stopped because I have so much shit everywhere. And I don't have a dedicated room where I can, I got my desk and whatnot, but it's not that I have like the true metal cage like I used to have,
Right.
Hey, I know someone who's a great decorator if you need my service.
I know.
Well, you must have some really cool memorabilia and all kinds of stuff from all the touring you've done over the years.
Yeah, a few items here and there that I cherish. Yeah, like some guitars and some amps, because obviously I work in that industry. I was a artist relations guy for a German amp company for about 10 years.
Oh wow,
awesome.
Okay.
So yeah, I was collecting posters when I was younger, right? A lot of Kiss posters, a lot of concert posters. So they're all over the place. I just got to sort through them at some point. You just bring them home, you put them in, especially with the Kiss guys, right? There's like these posters every night, made, for like, say, certain venue, or there's pretty cool ones too, as you know, right? So trying to snack a couple of these over the years, and then they end up wherever.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we have a closet full of posters yet, and we have like some put aside that we want to frame. There's like how many you think that we have?
Well, I'm converting our spare bedroom into an all Kiss cave. So if anyone stays with us, they better like Kiss. So otherwise, they can sleep on the couch in the living room. But first of all,
I just wanted to introduce you to, since you don't know each other, Johnny. This is Michael.
John,
Michael,
yeah.
Johnny. I know both
Yeah.
of you, luckily.
It's a pleasure
Pleasure to meet you, John.
Good to
Wow.
meet you virtually.
Cheers! Coffee cheers.
Heard a lot about you. Britt talks highly of you. She says you're awesome and you're really cool and a nice gentleman. So
And I met you drinking
I appreciate
coffee.
that. I appreciate that being cool with her and helping her out and kind of keeping your eye out for her on that Kiss cruise. That was really cool.
Totally.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it could be the opposite, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But no, pleasure to meet you, John. I obviously bumped into your brother a couple of times over the years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm sure he doesn't remember me, but we've done a few shows with Slayer. And then when I was younger, when Slayer came to Europe for the first time, we crossed paths there because Destruction was the first band I've ever worked for, because we grew up in the same town down in South Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how my career started anyway,
Awesome.
right? So I was all we were all listening to the hard rock and metal stuff that came out in the 70s and then early 80s, and just hang out like everybody else did. It was a great scene, right?
Right.
And then Destruction at some point got the notification that they're going to do a tour and opening up for Slayer in '85.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when Slayer came to Europe for the first time. So that was a great time.
So
everybody was young, you know, and ready to go.
So, John, were you there?
So were you there in '85 with them
You guys
on that tour, the German tour we did?
Yeah, but only for a partial time, because I had to go to school and had a regular job. I was like 16 years old or something, right?
Wow.
But I was, yeah, possibly. So did you go? Did you?
Yeah, I was there.
You were on that tour?
I was doing front of house and backline for them.
Oh, nice.
So that was 85.
Yeah.
In '85, I was 16. We're the same age.
Awesome.
Same age.
Wow. So we were in the same room and we worked together, but we had. So
That
we
is
probably
so
we
cool.
probably met then years ago.
Yeah. There's some pictures floating around. I know Shamia's still posting stuff here and there
Yeah,
about that time frame.
the party in the hotel room. Yeah, that or hanging. We're
Stapling
hanging
pizzas to the ceiling.
Yeah, we were hanging Tommy. That's a
That's
different
another
one.
time.
We were hanging Tommy over the edge of the window because he was so wasted. He was just throwing up everywhere, and the guys were so wasted. And there's photos of like us pointing at. All you see is Tommy's spandex butt. His spandex pants and his butt, and he's just like hunched over this window, just puking his guts out. We're like, ah! Oh my God, you were there. That's amazing.
You were there. That's cool. Oh, so
Yeah.
at that time you were already doing front of house for them?
Yeah.
Wow.
I did front of house, and I went out and mixed their sound, but then say if there was an issue on stage, I have to run all the way up to the stage and do whatever it was, and then run all the way
Double
back down.
duty.
Yeah, because it was just
It was like so it was like just a one-man crew kind of thing. I forgot.
pretty much, yeah, like one tech.
Well, but
We had a tour manager, but back then we called him a tour guide because we didn't know what tour managers were, so he just kind of guided us. He had the map, and we had it was a Mercedes, and it was a passenger, and then the back for the gear, and it was on the right hand side like a UK vehicle. So
oh no.
yeah, so none of us knew how to drive stick on this side. So since Dave Lombardo was left-handed, he's like, "You drive." So he's like, "All right." So he was driving left-handed.
Did he nail
problem.
it?
Yeah, no problem at all.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it was me, backline like tech, and then we had Doug Goodman, the tour manager, and KJ. Are you familiar with KJ Doughton?
Yeah, that rings a bell to me.
Yeah,
from that time frame.
He started the Metallica fan club back in the day. And, he came with us, so it was just the three of us and the band. It was very small.
That's cool. It was a small club tour.
Yeah, it was very small.
And then later on, which wasn't the funnest time for Destruction, because we opened up. There was like an opening act that couldn't continue the tour on the few years later on Raining Blood or whatever it was. And then they called Destruction to fill in, but it was just a nightmare because at that time everybody progressed already, was more professional. Slayer had like Bobby Schneider as a and it was more business-like, right? And they didn't treat us the way they did back then in '85, right? If you,
Oh,
it was all like it wasn't the band's fault or anything. It was just
yeah.
it was bad. I think we lost like bass drum channels, and it was at that time, and people were still uh like the road crew wasn't really looking out for the opening act so much at that time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
But
that's how it
anyway,
was back in the day. You had opening bands.
yeah,
You didn't really like. All right, you got 5 minutes to set up and sound check, and doors are in 10 minutes.
right.
Yeah,
And we don't want to see you guys here until 3 o'clock or something. Then you can come in with all your gear.
yeah,
It was more strict, right? I learned that when Destruction opened up for Motorhead, they were like very strict too. But Lemmy always treated us very nicely.
yeah.
They were
That's
also under the same management at the time, but um, it was more strict, right?
yeah, yeah. It becomes more like a business, so you kind of like
Hmm.
time is money, so they like boom, boom, boom. Everything's on a
Like
schedule.
competition, right?
Yeah,
Also,
that's
don't make them louder.
Yeah, we don't want them to sound better than us. We're headlining.
You
Yeah.
can't be louder than Lemmy. I don't think anyone can be louder than Lemmy, though. That
Yeah.
was
No.
no.
What I think is
this-
really cool about the two of you is you guys, you're both bass techs for two of the biggest singers and bass players in the world that use pyrotechnics, and you're both stage right. So I think that's really cool. You guys have a lot of parallels in your professional life.
So, John,
journeys.
bass tech. Are you bass tech for whom now? For
Right now I'm doing I work with Danzig, Steve Zig,
Mm.
bass player for Danzig. He was also one of the original members of Sam Hain.
Mhm.
And I do guitars for Doyle for the Misfits, the original
Ah.
Misfits. So
Mhm.
there's only 2 gigs I'm doing right now. They don't tour. They kind of just do like a week here. Danzig will do like 2 weeks. The Misfits they
Mhm.
just do one-offs here and there. But I mean, I guess if there was like a cool gig or something that was worth that, it had to be enough to get me out of my house.
Yeah, I hear you.
Because I like being home, and I like we're here, we're trying to get our podcast up, we're trying to get our
Mhm.
small business going. So I like to spend as much time as possible at home and help Britt and stuff with their
Of
tables
course.
and so
He likes my home cooking too.
I love, yeah. I just
Really?
yeah. It's amazing. She can open I call her the little
I'm a
kitchen
kitchen
wizard. She's a kitchen wizard because she can open the fridge and like, okay, what do we got? And it's like make something. I'm like, wow, this is incredible.
Well, you've seen my tables. I turn trash into treasure. I do the same thing with food.
I love it.
Yeah, it's great, man.
Hey,
So-
lucky man.
Yes, I'm
Aw,
very
thank you,
lucky,
guys.
very fortunate. I'm very grateful that Brittany's in my life. She's an amazing woman.
Thank you. Aw.
Awesome.
So I met Johnny because he wanted to get tattooed by me. He found me online, just searching like heavy metal tattoos, and I met him because he wanted to get a Slayer tattoo on the last Slayer run. So I wanted to ask you, do you have a Kiss tattoo, or would you?
I have
get a
no.
Kiss
I have
tattoo?
no tat. I
That's
have
what
no
thought.
tattoos
I
whatsoever.
thought you had told me you had none on the. Would you?
I'm one of those guys. You're probably gonna go, oh my god, what's wrong with him, right?
No,
But,
I have enough for both of us.
yeah, I love the artwork. I love everything, especially on what you do is really cool.
Thank you.
It's tasteful, and I can admire all that.
Yeah.
I don't know why I've never moved forward with that. I don't. Yeah, I remember Shmir had one back in the day. He started with one, and then he would just go crazy over the years, right? He said, I don't know what it is. You can tell me it's one of those, you're addicted to it. You want more, right? You can't stop with one. It's got to be some sort of a cool feeling that just hasn't gotten to me just yet. I don't know.
Yeah, I think with me it was like I was just obsessed with rock and roll as a kid, and
Mm-hmm.
my mom ran away at 15 and got a rose tattooed on her breast because she loved the Paul Stanley rose, and
Really?
she got tattooed by Lyle Tuttle, who's the one that did Paul's tattoo. So I was always like looking at that tattoo on my mom, and then just collecting metal mags and seeing Paul and all these old school rockers, Stevie Ray Vaughan and stuff being all tattooed. I'm like, man, they look cool. So like since I was a little kid, I always knew that I wanted to be tattooed. So I think some people get that bug, and then some people they just don't. They're like, I never really thought of anything I'd want on me, forever. So Yeah. I remember showing you
Ah,
a picture where I'm dressed on the cruise. I was like, oh, yeah, I'd like to dress up as Peter. And I showed you the picture. You're like, that's you? I've seen that photo. You have all my friends tattooed on you.
All my
I thought that
friends.
was
totally.
cute. Yeah.
That's a
That's
good photo. That was a really good photo.
Thank you.
well, that's
Yeah.
pretty cool when you
No.
can say like kiss. Oh, those are my friends.
Especially growing up in the Kiss Army.
Yeah, exactly. That's what's that like to work with like those guys who just I don't know, they're just iconic legends. I
Paved
mean,
the
nothing,
way.
nothing but like gold records and singles are just they're just like
Hmm.
such a huge, amazing entity. And I mean, how are they like in person? Are they just like down to earth guys? I know they're business wise, they're business savvy. They're probably some of the smartest businessmen ever. But how are they like personal to work for? Are they cool? Are they just like dudes or
It really depends on the setting, right? I first of all, I've been with those guys for 14 years or so,
wow, that's cool.
and it took me a long time to get used to the dynamics and how they work because I was used to English productions and maybe not as professional, not as powerful, right? I don't know how
Mhm.
you want to call it, but once you're in that Kiss cycle, um, there's so much going on, right? There's
Yeah.
management, there's middle management. It's too many people that are involved, and you got to find out and focus on what's in front of you and what's important and stay in your lane. And, there's certain politics that are going on. I think that's like with every Metallica, the big ones, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
There's so much going on, right? And you're like working with the guy directly.
Yeah.
Um, you got to keep a certain professionalism and distance
Of
and
course.
maybe mix it up with fun as well because Gene and Paul are funny guys. They crack me up. They're like when we at rehearsal, they just we have a good time, we laugh because there's no stress level, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But you always have to be very careful. You're always on your toes in a way, right?
Yeah.
And just always be prepared. Uh,
Right.
and anything can happen. But working for Gene, as soon as he's in character, it turns into showtime business, right?
Stress.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
it's wartime. It's like
Yeah.
this is my show. It better be right. I pay for all this shit,
Yeah.
and then I'm the first one that hears it. So it can you you can't be like light skinned, right? You can't be like sensitive and
Yeah.
go to the tour bus afterwards and cry yourself to sleep
Yeah.
Mhm.
because it's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. I bet.
So, but no, they cool guys. Just don't
Don't fuck it up.
don't step out of line, right? Don't
Yeah.
some guys make mistakes to become comfortable with they think, oh, the guy likes me a lot, he's making fun with me and oh yeah, I'm special, right? And then but he does that with everybody else too, right? It's
Right.
like a kind of a I wouldn't say shtick or whatnot, but it's you see through it after a while, right? So
Yeah.
don't get too comfortable. But
Yes.
I've been there long enough and I know what it takes to get that longevity factor, right? Like there's so many people get fired and hired, right? It happens all the time. I've seen guitar techs come and go, and that really is where you separate yourself from. Anybody can tune a guitar kind of and can figure things out. You have the basis down, and you can do a Kiss show, no problem, right? But
Yeah.
working for Gene is like so much stuff's going on during the show
Yeah.
and everything has to be happening at the right time. You
Yep.
can't forget stuff. You have
Yep.
to make notes. You have to be on top of your game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then
Especially because I was
yeah,
gonna say, especially because you're in charge of the fire and the blood and everything,
yeah.
right? Yeah, that's a
Sold
lot. Hmm.
stage plate basses, right? They sell instruments and sell them for a lot of money, and you gotta got the whole instrument and set it up from scratch. I can do a lot of these things ahead of time here in LA, and then they ship them out,
Right.
and I see them on the other end. But sometimes there's stuff on the fly, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you always have to have enough electronics with you. You have A, B, and C rigs, as you know, John.
Yep.
And that stuff you're in South America. Oh, I forgot this. You
Yeah.
can't do that.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Especially like an enterprise or a corporation like Kiss. It's so massive, And like I said, time is money, man, and you got to be on your game for that kind of environment.
Especially for the king of money, Gene.
That's right.
Yeah.
And there's differences, right? I've said that numerous times. I worked for Glenn Tipton with Judas Priest,
Whoa. Holy
for
smokes.
about 2 to 3 years.
Amazing.
Nicest people, right? But
Yes.
very typical English, right? They're so nice. Same with Deep Purple. I've been with those guys 4, 5 to 6 years, and worked for Roger Glover and then Steve Morse. That's a completely different world, right?
Yeah.
You have Glenn Tipton, he plays 2 guitars, and he never breaks a string, and it's like really, in a way, very easy. Once you worked for Gene and Kiss, and you work for someone like Priest, the Camp, everything has to be professional with them too. Don't get me wrong, and it has to be right. But it's just not so much stress, right? It's not so much machinery and craziness, right? It's more mellow, laid back. All right, we all hang out on the day off. We go to see you at 7:30 at the bar, and then let's see you. And that's like the band as well. Not maybe so much Rob Halford, but you have Glenn, you got Ian Hill, you got Richie Faulkner, and we go out and have a meal together. And it's a more family-oriented environment. Whereas Kiss, you rarely go out with Gene, and have a meal. That's not happening really.
Right.
It happens occasionally, but
I recently had the chance to tattoo Rob, that is Andy Sneap's tech, and he's a friend of ours. And so he was like, I really want to get tattooed. And Priest always plays 2 nights in a row here in San Antonio, because that's one of Halford's, it's one of Halford's favorite cities.
I know Rob.
Yeah, the heavy metal capital of the world, as he would always say. And Priest, my dad always played. My dad was a drummer, and so I just grew up, my dad jamming, playing drums all the time since I was a baby, and they always played Never Satisfied. And my dad loved Rock-a-Rolla, so Rock-a-Rolla was always playing over and over and over. When I was a kid, so I just was enamored by that record, forever obsessed with Priest. So when we got to know Rob, he's like, oh, I'm coming through town, I want to get tattooed, and the set carpenter wants to get tattooed. I was like, oh my God, how kick-ass, right? Yeah, and so cool. I finished tattooing all the crew, and then Rob goes, oh, I just got a text from Mariah. She wants you to come to the crew dinner. And I was like, oh, wow, awesome. Because Mariah and I have talked online about making something for Richie. I won't disclose what it is. But so anyway, so we're just kind of, I was like, oh, wow, really? He was like, yeah, we're having a crew dinner. And he's like, the whole band will be there except Halford. He prefers to just stay in his room and watch trash American TV. That's his favorite. So I thought that was cute. But yeah, they invited me to go to this bar downtown, which ironically, my dad has passed, but my dad was an electrician, and he wired this bar. And so I was like, what a cool thing that life came full circle. Like, my dad did all the wiring in this bar, Mad Dogs, and now I'm going to meet Judas Priest, one of my dad's favorite bands, in this bar. I just thought it was just so cool. And then so I showed up, and immediately Ian Hill's like, oh, hello, who are you? Because I was the only person that wasn't
such a nice guy.
The nicest guy. And so so who had told me, I think it was Rob, had told me that they call Ian Hill the nicest guy in rock and roll. And so Ian was at the bar, and I went up to get a water or something, and I was like, hey, my name's Brittany, and he's like, oh, you're the one tattooing the crew. I was like, oh my God, how cool, he already knew, right? And so I go, I heard you're the nicest guy in rock and roll. And he goes, oh, there's got to be someone nicer. I just thought that was so cute. And so, yeah, I hung out with them for a couple of hours, and I'm not a big drinker anymore. And so I just, they were like, get a beer, and I was like, I'm good. I'm going to make sure I'm minding my P's and Q's to make sure I can, just be here. What an honor to just be a fly on the wall. But they were just all such amazing people. And I'm like, I'm standing in a room with Judas Priest and their techs, and totally welcomed me, and were just the nicest people ever. And then I saw Priest 2 nights in a row, and had the chance to meet Halford, and he blew my expectations away, and is probably the number one nicest hero that I've ever met, and was just completely shocked by his presence and how kind and genuinely wonderful that Halford is. It was just really, really refreshing, because I've met a couple of my heroes that I won't name that just, they broke my heart. A couple of them I have tattooed on me, and they were just complete assholes to me, and it makes you kind of reevaluate your love for the band because of the personality that they are.
It's not necessarily right. Again, when you go back in the older days, there was more of that. There was a lot of idiots in the business, right? They thought they were larger than life, right? And then in hindsight, you think back, oh, that guy, that was always an asshole. Where is he now, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
You have to be professional. You have to be treating other people the right way. And
Right.
I was lucky enough to work for a lot of cool bands. Dio was another one, that
Amazing.
super nice. You hang at his house, he appreciates his crew. And then it's this big community too, right?
Yeah.
We were just recently bumping into each other, Kiss guys in one same compound as Judas Priest. Then the Metallica guys came visiting, and that was in Denmark, the big festival there. And then everybody hangs out. All of a sudden, you see Gene talking to Rob, right? And then Kurt, and they're all like together, right? It's all like this big community. I like that a lot. That's still there, right?
Yeah.
And Rob Halford was always one of those guys that he always talks about the metal community, right? He really means it. I think it's not fake and show. He really loves it. He lives that lifestyle,
Yeah,
right?
it's a lifestyle for him, for sure.
Yeah.
Lifestyle for me too. That's why we got along.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it's a
right.
lifestyle. It's a lifestyle. This music, especially, like I was saying the other night, with we talked to some friends of ours in a band called Chemicals from Dallas, and we were saying, yeah, it's a small, it's a big. The music industry is so big, but it's also a small community. Like you eventually run into everyone. You meet all these people, and you always see them down the road. And you always want to treat opening bands, support bands with respect, because you never know, like that could be your next boss. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Totally.
And just to treat people with respect, because then it comes back to you. Like say, like you're working for a band, and the band, that support band, is now a headlining band, and like, hey, I remember you. You were always cool. We're gonna take care of you. It comes.
It happens. It happens to us when we do obscure things like the Howard Stern show, or we played the Whiskey with Kiss, right? We put all this stuff in the Whiskey, and everybody was the local guys were scared. Oh, Kiss gonna come to the Whiskey. They're gonna be assholes, and the crew is probably gonna be arrogant. When everything else was different. They still talk about it now. Sometimes they go to Whiskey. Berger. Oh, those guys were so nice and so professional, and that's how you leave that mark, and it will spread the word around in the business. The Kiss crew they're really nice, they're professional, and Howard Stern, the crew there, said, "You guys were so amazing." We have different examples of crews coming in here and are not as cool and relaxed as you guys, and you should be stressed out really with all the stuff you have, but we're not, right? We're like, we've done this, we'll get it done,
Yeah.
But we treat people nice and don't yell at them, right?
Yeah.
There's no need.
Yeah. You get what you give. You put that out there, it comes back to you. So
That's what I was telling Johnny when I came home from the cruise. I was like, "You never believe who I met. He was so awesome." I was just bragging on how cool you were. I was like, "We have to get him on the podcast. He's the coolest dude," because I feel like you guys are pretty similar. You stayed humble. You've done so much cool stuff with your lives and worked for so many iconic, legendary people that so many people would, kill to meet or whatever. But you stayed humble and kind. And something that a lot of people I think don't understand about you guys' line of work is that it's really difficult. It's really hard, and it's really hard on your body. It's really hard to be away from your families. You spend so much time away from home. Johnny doesn't have kids, but just he's said time and time again that I spent so much time away from my mom and dad, and both of our parents are passed, and I used to tour with a band called St. Vitus and some of Wino's other projects, and I feel the same way. And so I worked with Wino for several years, and pretty soon after getting off tour and just starting, I started heavy metal shop and tattoo shop. Right after that, my dad passed, and so then I start thinking, man, like had I not spent those 5 years away touring and doing all the stuff, I could have been home with my dad. But you can't you can't live with that regret. But also, I think people don't realize like how much you guys really give up of yourselves in your life to be able to do what you do, even though it is such a rewarding job, and you get to meet all these great people. But it comes with a lot of stress and a lot of compromise,
Yeah, and John, you noticed, John, it was very in the beginning super exciting.
Yeah.
It was, for me, it was like, I want to be at the highest league possible. When I started out with Destruction, for me, it was fun. We were fans. And I just wanted to be around this whole thing, right? Whether if it's me being a musician or I'm a tech guy that is involved in the industry, but I knew I needed to be there.
Yeah.
Because I loved it so much. I was so infected by the whole virus, right? And then that's when I saw you, Britt, and on the cruise. There was something about you that reminded me on the old days. You know what I mean? I don't know how to explain it, but it was so authentic and real.
Thank you.
And I lost a lot of that along the way, because it's a business and you're around it all the time. All of a sudden it turns into a job. You're no longer the fanboy, but I still can be at times. When I hand Gene the fire sword, I go, dude, especially when I'm in Germany somewhere and in some arena where I used to go as a kid to see the bands. But now I'm standing up here handing him the torch.
Yeah. That's
and I'm doing it, right?
so cool.
I gotta remind myself that it's a cool thing, right? You accomplish what you wanted always.
Yeah.
You visualized it, you worked towards it, and it took a long time.
Yeah.
So now we're here. It's the 50th anniversary of Kiss, and I'm getting a little bit emotional too, because this is the last tour, and I'm a Kiss fan as well. Yeah. I mean, I grew up as a Kiss fan.
Right.
And here you are, right? It's kind of like a full circle thing.
Totally.
Now, John, did you work for Slayer throughout the years?
I worked for them. I started in 84 actually. We did our first like a van tour. We went up the coast we went up to San Francisco, came back home, and then we went further up. The next time we went all the way up to Seattle, and then came back down. That was in 84. Then we did another tour. We went south. We went through the southern part of the U.S., Arizona, New Mexico, Texas. And then after that, 85, we did our first kind of like major tour, I guess, with Venom. We supported Venom.
Oh, yeah. I remember that tour.
Yeah, 85.
Welcome to hell.
Yeah. And then
That's right.
86 was kind of like our first like real professional gig with our own production. We had lights, we had a PA, we had a semi with all the gear in it, and we had a tour bus. I'm like, man, this is crazy. And it was crazy because it was only in a matter of like 2 years where we were touring in a Camaro and a U-Haul to a trailer and a bus. I'm like, wow, this is it just got so crazy. And in 87 on that Rain and Blood tour you're talking about, I had to go back to school. So my dad was like, you got to finish school. You can't go on tour. You got to finish. You got to graduate. You need a diploma. I'm like, all right. So I stayed home in 87, but they also had like more professional. They had, like you said, Bobby Schneider came in and kind of like, all right, he's going to hire his own guys.
Yeah. That's the way when that's when it becomes a business.
Yeah. That's when it's a business. So like, all right. So I it's kind of like me having to stay home, but also I wasn't going to get hired because this guy had his own crew. So I'm like, all right, well, I stayed home, finished school, graduated, and did all that, and then I got back with him in 1990. Tom's like, hey man, come back on tour with us. I'm like, all right. So I started again. So it was like off and on, since 84 to 2019 when they did their final tour. So
tell me who else you work for.
Just several over the years. I did after Slayer. I did Slayer was my first gig, and then I started. Then I hooked up with Danzig. When they about 93. I started working with Danzig.
Were you in Sacramento when we played with Kiss and Danzig was on the same stage?
Yeah, we were there. So you're the only person that I didn't meet. I met what's Paul's tech's name? His new tech?
Oh, at the time, TJ.
TJ. So he was on the Kiss cruise as well, right? Okay, so
you didn't come see me?
I didn't know you yet.
We didn't know you.
Yeah, so Kiss cruise was right after that, and so you're literally the only person I didn't meet. And so I ran into TJ. Aftershock. He's friends with Steve, who's
Steve Roman.
Steve Roman. Yeah, so he's good friends with Roman.
Who worked for Slayer?
Yeah, we toured together for several years, for at least 3 years. He was a head lighting crew chief.
Yeah, I know. I work with Steve.
It's just
Yeah.
crazy because we linked up with Steve at Aftershock, and then we went up, and TJ's shining up Paul's guitar, and maybe I shouldn't say this, might get him in trouble, but maybe he's already in trouble. But he was like, "You want to hold Paul's guitar?" I was like, "I
Anytime.
guess." And so they took a picture of me holding Paul's guitar, and I'm just like the picture of me
Oh,
with King
that's-
Diamond, you know. So I was like, "How did I not meet Michael?" But we were just there early before before Danzig was setting up, and then I was working and helping set up Danzig's room and stuff like that. So I don't really like to be back there. I feel like I'm in the way, even though Johnny's like, "Hang out," but.
I remember the day and the stage and everything. You must have been on stage right as well, right?
We were on stage left.
We were
actually.
stage left.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Steve Zing, he's stage left, so that's where we were hanging out. That's how we met TJ. You know, he was like,
Mhm.
we were like staring, like, that's Paul's gear. We're like, oh.
Yeah, and he had this poster of Paul that someone had given to him in his work
Mm-hmm.
box, and at the end of the show, he was like, "Hey, do you want this?" And I was like, "Hell yeah!" So he gives me this poster, and then on the cruise, he was like, "Man, you look familiar to me," and I'm like, "Dude, you gave me a poster of Paul at Aftershock," and he's like, "Oh yeah!" So yeah, that was pretty
Nice.
Cool. But I think
That's
you're the only person I didn't meet, so you were saving the best for last. So sorry.
That's right.
That's pretty awesome too.
Yeah, love Roman.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I like when he yells around.
So Michael, so during COVID, is that when you decided to take on? You do real estate too. Is that when you decided to take that
Yeah.
on? Yeah, because we were like up shit creek without a paddle, for lack of a better term, because my tattoo shop got shut down. Johnny had no touring, and we're like, what are we gonna do? We moved to San Antonio when we had first met because my dad got sick and my dad immediately passed. So we just rented a house. So we didn't know where we wanted to be. Johnny's from LA. I'm from Texas, but we were just kind of like in limbo. Like, what do we do for money? And I'm a hustler. I've always worked for myself, tattooing and just making stuff. I'd never liked working for the man, so I just carved my own path through.
You're doing an amazing job.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you guys do like business wise and all that, but
Financially, we
what
scrape by.
what I see is great, and I see a lot of potential in that. You know, if you
Yeah.
do it the right way, I guess.
Yeah,
Right. And
yeah.
I'm not good with like the management side of things. I'm so nice that I'm like, "Oh, you like this? Well, I spent this much making it, so just give me that much back." And Johnny's like, "No, you spent 200 hours on that. Why did you just give that away?" So if I had a manager, I'd probably be a lot more successful monetarily. But I just want to make stuff and not deal with the money aspect of it. But
Yeah, then you need one guy that can
Exactly.
do that side of the business.
Yeah.
so what's it like going from teching to real estate, and like when Kiss ends, are you gonna continue to work for bands, you think, or do you think you'll just dive
I need to figure out a way, and that's what I'm doing simultaneously to set myself up
Yeah.
for success in another area.
Mhm.
And real estate makes sense for me. And I want to launch that business the right way, you know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of similarities. It's not everybody's cup of tea, right? I want you to meet Juliet. She's from Hawaii. She's like you, and maybe I should connect the two of you. She's a real estate agent, and she's a heavy metal fan.
Oh.
And she started it. She's the brainchild behind it, but we started this thing called Heavy Realty.
Yes.
It's a network program for people in the music industry that are loan officers now, that are real estate agents, and we want to just create this network of people around the world, if you want.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's another avenue, right, that we pursue to throw each other business. Okay, someone like what's his name? It's also for investors. Chuck Billy, she did an interview with Chuck Billy from Testament, and there's a lot of musicians that are investors too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they came to money somehow, and they need to figure out where to park their money and things like that. So Juliet is involved in that.
Wow.
But yeah, I want to do good business here. I see a lot of similarities in real estate to what I do as far as providing a service goes to clients, right? And being professional at what you do. And you need to find a way that people start liking you and refer you again to other clients. So it's a repeated business. Like with you have these tables or whatnot, and people order them. They think they're great. They want more of it. Hey, they recommend you, and more business comes in, right? So, but yeah, it's tough. Everything is tough.
It is.
You got to work your ass off no matter what. You got to be in the flow. You got to make calls. You got to be out there. And while I'm touring, it's not really possible, but I see it in a positive way because I'm around Gene and other people, and they know I'm doing real estate. So I feel like eventually there's going to be a time when all this pays off and it all kind of blends together. And that's staying positive in that regard, right? Is important.
Yeah, that's how we feel too. It's been really tough for us. I mean, since we got together, there's been a lot of like just personal things that have happened, and then people we thought we were gonna be close to living here, they just kind of were like later, and we just kind of had some just a lot of hardship since we got together, and it's like test after test after test. Like we got together, my dad immediately died, then COVID hit, then my brother was murdered, and then it was like bam, bam, bam. Like how much can a new couple survive together? And we did, and somehow we survived all of these crazy hardships. But now we're just picking ourselves back up and being like, you know what, we can do this, but it's gonna take. And I'm teaching Johnny this because his thing is, I need a paycheck, and I've never had a paycheck because I've always worked for me, because I don't like working for the man. I don't like spending 8 hours a day making someone else money when I know I've just got a crazy creative brain. I'm always like, what can I make? What can I do next? What's my next move? And he's like, man, I've just never really been like, I've never had to hustle. I'm like, baby, I'm going to teach you how to hustle. We can do this on our own. You can help me make tables and we can do this together. But it's been really tough and a lot of challenges. But like you said, you got to keep that positive mindset, because I will get in a negative mindset, and then I just, I'll get depressed about my brother or something, and then I just like sink into a hole for 4 or 5 days. I'm like, no, I can't do that, because it's just so counterproductive to our growth and what we want to do in life. And life is so tough, but you just got to put in perspective. It can always be worse. Yeah, it could always be better, but you just keep the faith. And I think that what you have going on is really awesome. And like you said, eventually all of those irons that you're putting in your fire are going to, it's going to pay off. So, but it's been tough, especially since COVID. Everything's so different.
Yeah, for sure.
It is.
Yeah.
But we got to be uncomfortable to be comfortable one day, right?
Right.
Yeah. When you're uncomfortable, you grow, and that's good.
Yeah.
It's tough, but you guys went through all these hardships. That's the worst that can happen, right? Family members and things like that.
Yeah.
That's just a tough one, and we all have to face it eventually. When you have children, it gets even to the next level of worries.
For sure.
It never ends. It's like a constant. How do you make that happen for them guys?
Yeah,
especially
sure.
in such a crazy world. It just seems like it's so upside down now.
Oh, it is.
I mean,
the social media and everything. The people losing their minds.
It's so.
Thank God. Thank God, guys like us, right, John? We grew up in an area in a time when things were just somewhat normal. I mean, it was crazy then too, but we were occupied. But we didn't have the cell phones and the constant
not occupied by this,
like right now, nobody was doing Zoom. You were on a phone.
Yeah.
You send out a demo, to Lars Ulrich, and then he sends one back and puts some money in it,
Yeah.
Snail mail. It's like everything's Wayne's World now. Like Wayne's World predicted the future. Everyone's just in their basement filming.
Yeah.
It's like back in the day, there was, like our first tour was like, all right, here's a map, here's some phone numbers.
Yep.
All right.
We better be there.
Yeah. All right. Pull over at McDonald's, order some, a family chicken McNugget meal because we didn't have any money.
Everybody gets 2 nuggets,
and then
all right?
there's my brother on the phone talking to promoters or Carrie, like, all right, I'm gonna go to the payphone. Hey, what's up? We'll be there. We're an hour out, or it was different back then.
Or like St. Vitus, for example, their first tour of Europe, stopped at a truck stop in the middle of the night and left their lead singer at the truck stop and didn't realize till 8 hours later. So that's why he quit the band and they got wino. He's like, "Fuck you guys," because he thought it was a joke. And they're like, "No, we just didn't know you weren't back in the van." But there's no cell phones to call and be like, "Hey, what the heck?" So how did he get home? He had no money, like just like being stranded in Europe. Like, oh my gosh, it's such a
It happened.
different time.
It happened to us with the band Sodom. You know, a funny story. Tom Angelripper, the lead singer and bass player, it was like an overnight. We were on a tour bus, and he was left behind. He just went to take a piss, went outside, no money, just shorts and a t-shirt and flip-flops. And we were on our way from Germany through Switzerland, Italy, and then down to wherever, Spain. And they had a show, and nobody recognized that he was left at the gas station. With no money and no ID, no nothing. And he had to figure out a way to finagle him to make a call to the agency in Germany. Hey, they left me here. And then, nobody had a phone on the tour bus either.
Oil
until,
spotted,
like classic story, like the way you just said.
Exactly. And it's like, how long did it take for them to realize he was gone?
Yeah.
Probably 8 to 10 hours
Exactly.
at least.
No. Man,
And then has anybody seen Tom? And then that was just a nightmare. And then someone drove him. The office called someone and said we got to drive him down to there, and it was just a whole nightmare. But he showed up, and he was able to do. Like obviously later they were holding doors and whatnot, and then he showed up in his flip flops and went straight on stage with the shirt and the shorts.
Oh, no.
Wow, he made the gig. That's
Oh my
crazy.
God, what a nightmare! How scary! Wow.
Yeah.
You ever get oil spotted?
Once in Finland, but it was they noticed right away.
Right
so
away. Oh, okay.
We were doing head counts. It was more of a system then.
Yeah.
You had to leave your laminate on the driver's
on the seat.
On the seat or something like that.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Exactly. That's it. Yeah. I was oil spotted once in UK. It sucked, man. Like.
At least it was English speaking country.
Yeah, but still, we had no money. We had nothing on us because we got out. It was like a truck stop somewhere in UK. Everyone got out, and like, man, we got to go to the toilet. And the other guy was the two of us that went inside while the bus driver fueled up, and then we were inside. We used the facilities, and we were looking around like, oh, I'm gonna get this chocolate bar because I had enough for like. Oh look, I got some shitters. I'm gonna buy a chocolate bar or something to snack on. We walk out and the bus is gone. Like, all right. We walk around the corner. There's no bus. Like, oh man. So we had to take a taxi 3 hours to the gate.
At least you have a we, and it wasn't just
Yeah,
you,
it wasn't.
right?
If I was by myself, I'd be like, you know what? I'm gonna go home. Fuck this. This sucks. But the other guy was a sound guy, and I was the backline tech, so we had to be there. But it's scary and it's a nightmare. But it's definitely a real shitty feeling to be left like that. It's a terrible feeling.
Yeah. But times have changed. Obviously, circling back to staying positive, and there's opportunities out there still. I mean, you got to put everything in perspective, which is not always easy. And also, it depends where you are, right? Where do you live? Is it doom and gloom all the time? Is it raining, right? Because I remember growing up in South Germany, we had the music, we had nature and everything, but it was a certain, I don't know, it's just a certain feel, right? It was different than LA where the sun shines every day. And you, John, where did you grow up in LA, you said?
Yeah, I grew up in Los Angeles.
What part?
It was I was born in a small town and we lived in Maywood, but we moved to Huntington Park, which is like about southeast of Los Angeles. It was a suburb of LA.
Yeah. So anyway, here it's more like, oh, you get out, the sun shines, you're like, okay, great, right?
Let's do this.
And then we used to just stay inside sometimes and listen to music, smoke, and drink beer, and just listen to music.
That's it. I think
a lot
always
of
been my
the new Slayer. Listen to this. You put it on.
Did you hear Johnny on Hello Waits? Oh,
that was you?
Well, there's like a chorus. There's like maybe 4 or 5 of us in the background going, join us. join us, and
That's awesome.
and then they played it. We recorded it backwards, so when you played it normally, it's not like we're saying "say not,"
Yeah.
It's us saying "join us." It's really cool. But
That's awesome. I never
Right?
knew that.
yeah, we were like the
But we
chorus.
all were so like focused on that intro, right? We knew.
Yeah. And then it kicks in. It's
That's
just like
cool.
the hardest intro.
Yeah.
Bam.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Like there's
I love it.
if you listen to that intro now that you know, if you listen to it, there's one in the background that's making all these funny gurgling noises. He's like, that's Rocky George from Suicidal. And,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, and then the welcome back in the beginning is Jeff. He's like, welcome back, but he
That's
said it
awesome.
normally, and then they slowed it down. That's why it sounds like welcome back.
Hell yeah.
So it was a chorus from hell that was on that record. It was really fun.
We did a lot of gang vocals, with the Destruction guys, and
Nice.
even just recently when I was in the studio with Alice in Chains, hey, come on, Berger, come in, and we were like, the last record they did, Brainy, what's it called again? Brainy or something. Rainier Fog. I was a part of that.
Oh, you were.
Love
That's
those.
amazing.
Love those guys.
That's great.
I was never into grunge when it came out because obviously we were all mad. They killed our music,
Killed the metal, yeah.
But now later on, working with these guys a couple of years, oh my God, they're so good.
Check this
They're
out.
such great musicians.
Sorry for my
And-
unpainted toes, but I have Lane's tattoo. His little smiley
No way.
right here on the side of my.
Oh my God, look at that.
So
Have you met them? Have you met Jerry and
we
Contrell?
actually.
Yeah, she got to meet Jerry.
I met him.
I got
twice.
to introduce her to Jerry. When was that? That was last year.
Last year when he did the tour for the new record for Brighton, I freaked out because Degradation Trip is one of my favorite records of all time, and it's been 20 years since he had toured, and I never got the chance to see him solo because I was born late, and so I never really got to see Jerry. So Johnny introduced me, and I did this painting for him of a heart that said "I'd like to fly," and it had Lane's tattoo. Blah blah blah. So I give him the painting, and it was a quick interaction, but he was like, "Thank you so much." He really like took in the painting. He was like, "Wow, this is Lane's tattoo. This is so cool," And so I gave it to Jerry, and then we just drove up to Oklahoma to see him 2 weeks ago, and I made him a gift. I make the tables, but I also make coasters as freebies to go with my tables and stuff, and sometimes just as gifts for people. So I had pulled a bunch of live shots from the Cantrell tour, from this tour, and made a ton of coasters for the whole band just to have on the tour bus for fun. And so we saw him walk out, and I was like, "Johnny, just text him, let him know we're here." And he's like, "No, I don't like to bother people." I'm like, "Okay, cool. So we'll see him organically." So I go up, and everybody's waiting to get stuff signed, and he walks right over to me. And I was like, "Hey, Jerry," I was like, "I made you a gift." And he was like, "Oh, cool." And he was just kind of on autopilot, and he like went to go sign the top of the box. And I was like, "Oh no, this is a gift for you. This is for you." And he goes, "Oh." And then he looked up and he goes, "Well, what is it?" And he like looked at me like he recognized me, right? And so he opens the box and he's like, "Wow, this is really cool." He's like, "Thank you so much." And so then he like went to go meet the next person. I put my arms out to give him a hug, and he kind of like looked at his like bodyguard, and he hugged me, and everyone was like, "Hey, what the fuck?" But I was like, "Hey man, I brought a gift. I'm not trying to get
that's
anything
right.
from him, right?"
Yeah.
And so I walk away, and Johnny was talking to some friends and in the parking lot, so Jerry didn't see Johnny, and so I was like, "Oh my God, yay, I got to give him my gift. I'm so excited." Like what I get real shaky around him. He's like one of my favorites ever. And so we're walking back to the truck, and I get tapped on the shoulder, and it's like Jerry's, bodyguard or whoever he was. Security maybe.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Hey, Jerry wants to talk to you." And I was like, "Huh, me?" And he's like, "Yeah, he wants to talk to you a little bit more about your gift." I was like, "Cool." So I was like, "Oh my God, babe, I'll be right back." And so I run over there, and Jerry's like, he's like, "Hey, thank you so much for this gift. This is so awesome." He's like, "Man, I recognize you." And I was like, "Yeah, I gave you a painting last year." And he was like, "The tattoo girl. Oh, I remember." and then he like perked up, and he was like, "Man," he was like, "That's so cool." And I was like, "Johnny's here." And he's like, "Araya, oh my God, that's right. You're Johnny's girl." So we put two and two together because you guys meet so many people on the road, of course.
Of course.
And he's like, "Come on back." And he like got all super excited. And I was like, what an amazing experience. And that's one of my heroes in addition to Halford that I've met, that I was just like, what an amazing human that stayed humble and has been through so much hardship. I lost my mom to a drug overdose, and my mom was obsessed with Alice in Chains. So I have like a kind of a weird love affair with that band because I truly relate to to that, And a lot of people are like, "I don't get it. It's such downer stuff." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I relate to the story.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really something that really is in my soul, is that music. And sometimes like I'll just break down and cry because I remember hearing these songs as a kid and seeing my mom passed out on drugs when Again was playing or whatever in the background, and I still have these,
of course,
just this that music is just ingrained in my heart and soul. And if you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. And I'm glad that you said that when you met me, you felt like such a genuine vibe, and that's what Johnny says to me too. Because I've lived this lifestyle my whole life. I've always been into rock and roll. I've always collected records since I was a little kid, and I'm glad that that I was able to like carve my path through what I love. And it's tough financially, and
awesome,
but it's very rewarding knowing that I stayed true to myself.
Good things will come to you. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
it's very positive.
And to you.
It's all connected,
Yeah.
And I think I'm not concerned about you and your success with what you love doing, and there will be you're going to see some results in the long run.
Yeah, for sure.
But you can't give up, and you got to stay on track, right?
Yeah. Keep focused.
And with the whole the drugs and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I just want to add this. I just decided to. I came back from a long year with Kiss, and we lost a friend 2 years ago, Francis, who was Paul's tech. Right. So I miss him dearly, and we were just going a little bit too hard on ourselves with alcohol and drinking, and just wash things down after the show. And so I decided to just cut back.
That's good.
At the beginning of this year, I'm going to go to the gym. I work out. I eat differently. I cut back on alcohol, and so this is going to be my first tour here next week when we go to South America, where I'm just have a different mindset with everything, right? Yeah. Because 30 years of, remember when we started out, it was all about the boozing, the drinking, and the constant. I never did heavy drugs or anything.
Yeah.
Maybe once or twice when I was working for a punk band, but it's important to stay clear up here, right?
Yeah.
I think
stay clean.
Yeah, I think that's
stay clean. Lemmy.
That's right.
I think that's what happens with.
Yeah, I wore this today for you.
Right.
That's right.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Nice.
Hold on a sec. This is like.
Oh hell yeah!
You see it?
Awesome.
Oh, rad.
Dude,
that's awesome. What a great
show.
show.
I remember when we bumped into Sepultura for the first time. Same thing, right? They come from Brazil for the first time and tour in Europe. This is another one of those special times, right?
Right.
Because they were all Destruction fans, and it was a great time.
Wow, that must have been a party with those guys. And Destruction and Sepultura hanging out. Wow.
South Americans are wild in the best way. I saw that on the Kiss cruise. It was like anytime they're like, where's Argentina?
Totally.
So yeah, South America is pretty.
So I don't know if you saw, but I'm very excited for this bill because there's a lot of friends that we're gonna meet. It's gonna be Kiss, Scorpions, Deep Purple.
Wow.
Who else? Doro, Pesh, Halloween.
Doro.
If you're into the
hell yeah.
Symphony X. So all of these bands, I know all of them, right? I worked for them, or whatever constellation I did something for. So it's gonna be fun to see everybody, right?
Yeah.
One last time, I think. I mean, that's never gonna happen again. I don't think.
Yeah.
So the Kiss guys will do, like they said on the cruise, they're going to do their side projects like on the cruise. Or do you think they'll do that regularly too, or just for the Kiss cruises?
I have no idea.
Right.
I mean, it's that they probably don't know themselves.
Right. They're just like, That's right.
Yeah. I mean, like, what do? I mean, you stop after 50 years and you stop. I mean,
they're going to chill. Paul's going to make pizza every day.
Yeah, Paul paints a lot, so he comes in and paints, and that's his thing, right?
Yeah.
Of staying busy and do stuff, and they all have a lot of stuff going on. I mean, they do interviews, and Gene appears on. Gene is doing a Vegas experience. Gene will never stop. He was going to continue with making money. It's his hobby.
Hey man,
I want that hobby.
he's
Yeah.
he's good at it, man. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
I mean, jeez, they were like one of the first bands that kind of licensed their image and made
Start marketing.
made marketing, like they made dolls, they made lunch
Yep.
pails,
Makeup.
they did all that before anyone, and that's just
And
genius.
then you got these guys. Remember these guys?
Yes.
Oh yeah, of course.
Hell yeah.
Maiden, man. Maiden.
Maiden was another big band for me that, I mean, I like, oh my God, Maiden, Power Slave.
Mhm.
Right.
Hell yeah.
So you
That's the tour.
are you do you have a preference, Diano, Dickinson, or you just like them both equally?
So for me, Iron Maiden is from the first record up until Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. After that, I'm like, not bad or this and that. And I know the guys. I know Michael Kenny, Steve Harris's tech.
Right.
Not anymore. I think he quit.
Uh-huh.
But he always used to give me a demo when something came out, or when before it came out, we would go to his little place here in LA and we'd listen to it or something.
Oh, that's cool.
But and he has all this memorabilia from all the years. He was the keyboard guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was doing all those. He was the count.
Oh.
The Seventh Son of a Seventh Son tour. He was the guy on that organ. That's Michael Kenny, doing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I always heard firsthand, what's going on. But for me, I'm definitely traditionalist when it comes to Maiden.
Right.
First record, I love the Diano stuff.
Yeah.
And I bought it. You probably did too. When that record came out, someone said, have you ever heard of this band? We were not. My English was horrible, and I didn't know how to say Iron Maiden. I said Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden. Have you heard of Iron Maiden? Oh yeah, and Kiss. Yeah, Kiss. Yeah, Judas Priest.
Judas. Oh.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
The J is silent.
Yeah,
that's right.
That was the same thing with Maiden. Like, well, my experience with Maiden was I saw an ad in the local paper for Killers, and it was this Eddie with the axe. I'm like, what is this?
Yes.
Iron Maiden.
I need
this zombie guy, dead guy with the axe with blood all over it. Like, I got to get this record. That's what sold me. Was just the image.
Yep.
The
image.
And then I
Derek
heard
Riggs'
it.
art is so iconic. Yeah.
And then Eddie's just iconic. And then I heard it. I'm like, my God, this is rad. And then I'm like, oh, they got another record before this, which was the first record, Iron Maiden. I'm like, wow, Diano. And then I was just like, Diano is the man, And then when
totally.
When he was out, and then Number of the Beast came out, I'm like, all right, this is cool.
It's not
it's not as punk rock or raw, but it's still good. It's good music and stuff. But Diano's my guy, man. I think he's just punk rock.
We just saw him recently.
Awesome.
He came. He was backstage in the wheelchair at the Kiss show.
Oh wow!
Like, that's Paul Diano. Jesus.
Yeah.
He was like, yeah.
Oh no.
Wow.
Too bad.
Yeah, and that's just like just the years of, like you said, when you just when you party hard, you get you suffer the consequences, man. Longevity gets cut short. So
yeah, that's why I'm pulling the brake, and I probably never hit it as hard as Paul Diano or Lemmy, or never. Far from it. I'm a pussy. No, but still, it's when you reach a certain.
You feel better.
Feel
when
better.
You take better care of yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
I'm surprised that Lemmy survived for as long as he did. Because,
and then working for Gene, he always underlines he's not a big fan of that. He hates it. He hates the drugs. He hates drug. You're not saying hate it, but he doesn't respect that kind of thing, right? So it influences me a little bit.
Yeah,
because when I'm not on the top of my game, I'm going to receive a text from him. Are you on drugs? Or are you drinking beer? What's going on? When you get, he's like, I think there was this wardrobe girl once. She would openly admit that she smokes before during the day or something, and Gene fired her right away. You don't say that to Gene. Don't say to Gene you're doing drugs in front of him.
I mean,
At
do
least
you know anything about Kiss? You should know this.
So he's pretty strict when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, you're paying someone to work for you. You want them to be
Mhm.
For the hottest band in the world.
100%,
you know, so.
150%, on your
At
gigs.
least during the show, right? Or like on a long tour,
Yeah.
you want to make sure you stay clear-headed, right? When you need to be at your game,
Yeah,
on top of your game.
Okay,
Yeah.
guys, so I have a question for both of you. It just popped in my head. What is the worst gig you've ever worked in the sense of things going wrong? And what is the best gig in the sense of maybe meeting one of your heroes or just it was just the greatest crowd ever? And does anything just pop out like, oh yeah, this was just the worst thing that ever happened to me and I almost got fired or someone almost got killed or whatever? Does anything like that stand out to either of you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the worst period of my early touring or tech career was when I was not a professional and I worked with Destruction. And Shamir was always he was very hard-headed. He would throw shit around if it wasn't right. And I remember we had this TV show in Braunschweig, Germany, and I was the only tech, and I wasn't good at what I did at the time. I was just a roadie hanging out and throwing people off stage, and maybe put some guitar picks on the mics. Remember the moshing on stage? That they all jump on stage all the time, and it was a big mess on stage all the time. Shit would fall over, right?
Yeah.
And then I think I tuned his bass in the wrong pitch or something, and he lost his mind.
Oh no.
And then one of the guitar channels from the TV station wouldn't work, and it was just the whole product was just a nightmare. And he would throw a bass in the corner. That bass still exists. The thing is still chipped off, on the. So that for me, I took it very seriously, and I'm like, man, I failed. It was horrible, and Schmear's yelling at me. So that I was really at the time still green, right? So those were kind of the horror scenarios when something wouldn't work. We're doing a Christmas metal meeting festival, and then there's no sound coming out of the rig. I had no idea how to fix stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because we have cheap equipment, cheap cables, cheap everything. You just show up with a couple of bags, and that was always my nightmare. That stuff wouldn't work.
Yeah.
So even now with kids, sometimes I'm like, man, what if this goes wrong? But you can't think like that. So you have everything prepared. Yeah. Especially with Gene, there's no cables. You can hook him up. There's not an option. It has to be wireless. Yeah. Anyway, the best for me was, I would say, when I got an AOL messenger at the time, and I had my first computer, and I was like, oh, I'm connected internationally, and I was working for some bands in Germany, and I got to open up with that band and work for Dream Theater. Open up for Dream Theater, and we were on the tour together, things like that. And then I met when you meet people and they like you, and they go, hey, this guy would actually be perfect to work for this band. And then I got Maddie Schieferstein, who got me all these cool gigs at the time internationally. He got me on Dio. So then I worked for Jimmy Bain, bass tech. And so for me, that was like one of those periods of my career. I'm like, oh man, this is fantastic. I'm doing international stuff now. I'm working for all these cool bands, or start working for those bands, and work my way out of the German scene, right? Out of the European, more like international. And then I got the gig with Deep Purple, and that for me was the greatest ever. Just I remember that first Deep Purple show, and Smoke on the Water, and the crowd singing Smoke on the Water, and Perfect Strangers, and it was like in a stadium, I guess. And I'm okay, this is it. I'm on the stage. Here's this Hammond organ, doing the sound, right? Oh man. The two Leslies spinning, and I'm like, wow, those guys are
amazing.
The true heavy metal dudes,
Machine Head and In Rock, those are two of my favorite records of all time. I love
and Ian Pace, the humblest guys on drums, doing his thing back there. It's like, wow, these guys are so tight. They're like the best musicians ever in a way.
Amazing
and
band.
Totally. And then that for me was like the highlight. And this is where my career kind of like catapulted to the next level. Yeah. And then I had one more time a similar. For me, as like being a fan kind of boy, I'll never forget the first show with Kiss when I was working for Tommy Thayer at the time. But handing them the guitars and or the guitar, and then these guys come in their full makeup, and oh my God, this is it. I better
I
get this
made
right
it.
now.
Yeah.
No, I better, put the strap around this thing and boom, here you go. See you later. And then they come over with their platform right over the drum riser.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God, this is a bit too much right now to take in. Because we just rehearsed in a small room before and the tour was already going on. So I was just, you better get this right. And you have a few shows under your belt, then maybe you can relax a little. But so that was another big highlight, seeing like you want the best, you got the best husband in the world, boom, right? And
Yeah.
and you're standing on the wings and kind of like, oh my God, here I am, right? So that was
Yeah.
another big, and seeing those audiences and everything, right? So yeah.
Amazing.
Sure.
What about you,
How
Joe?
about you?
Well, I think that one of my worst gigs was it's probably I was working with Machine Head, a band out of San Francisco,
Yeah, I
thrash
know
metal
those
metal
guys.
band.
Yeah.
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 We did a show at the it's a famous venue in London. I can't think of it
The
right.
theater, the
Yeah.
Astoria,
No, not Astoria. It was a
Astoria,
little bigger. Was it
bigger.
the one with the
The
big
old.
wooden backstage and they got it's upstairs. The dressing rooms are upstairs. There's like a long row of dressing rooms. It's kind of like a man. You know what?
Anyway,
I don't
what
remember it
happened?
right now.
What happened?
Yeah, but anyway, so Rob Flynn's like, handing him the guitar, and his guitar is supposed to ring out,
Mhm.
and there was like wireless interference. So he went to hit the chord, and there was silence. I'm like, oh my god,
Yeah.
oh. So after that
Mhm.
tour, I was like, hey, you know what? I'm not working with these guys.
Well,
I
he's
didn't work
also
with them
kind of
anymore.
one of those guys, maybe like what you describe Schmear as, just kind of
Yeah, he's one of those.
Yeah.
Guys,
Yeah.
it's not working.
Yeah.
the fuck, Johnny.
But
Yeah, yeah. They can't stay cool in that moment.
yeah. So then
Mhm.
and then one of the coolest gigs was when I got to tech for Lou Reed. I had a friend.
Mhm.
I had a friend who was drum teching and bass guitars, and he's like, "Hey man, we need a tech. Are you available?" I'm like, "Sure. What's it for?" He goes, "Lou Reed." I'm like,
No pressure.
I'm like, Velvet Underground. He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Holy smokes!" All right. He goes, "Yeah, you'll be taken care of stage right." His name is Mike Rathke, the guitar player at the time. I'm like, "Oh, great. Cool." So I show up, and they already start. They were on tour already, like you did.
Mhm.
I went straight onto a tour. Like I had no rehearsal. I just showed up in San Francisco. All right, it was a show day. I'm like,
Mhm.
holy smokes! I was sweating. I was nervous. It's like, oh yeah, you'll be doing Lou as well. I'm like, wait, I thought I was just doing one guy. They're like, no, you're doing Mike and Lou. I'm like,
Oh no, the other guys. Yeah.
oh, there goes my knee. My knee started shaking. I'm like, oh my god, I'm sweating. So we're setting up our sound check. I'm setting up all the gear, and the bass tech, my friend Armando, or they call him Yogi. I don't know if you know him, Yogi Garcia. He's out of Vancouver.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I've probably crossed paths with him
Yeah, for
eventually
sure.
at
He's
some
worked with so
point.
many bands, and
Yeah.
he got me into that gig. And so he's standing there showing me, okay, here's Lou. This is how we set it up. This is what he likes. This is where his pedal board goes. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm taking
Mhm.
mental notes, and then he walks in. I'm like, holy smokes, there he is. Like, wow.
Yeah.
I like I had to take a step back. I'm like, all right, man, focus,
Mhm.
breathe. All right, this is Lou, Wild Side, all that. I'm like, holy smokes.
Mhm.
So then he's like, comes up to the stage and he's like, so I'm standing there next to him with Yogi and the production manager, and he's like, he
Mhm.
looks at his production manager. He goes, does he know how to, replace or pickups?
Mhm.
And then the production manager will look at me. Do you know how to wire pickups? I'm like, yeah,
Wire.
yeah, like
Mhm.
wire. I was like, yeah, I know how to wire up pickups. I can change pickups if I have to, swap them out. I know wiring.
Mhm.
And then Lou would like look at his production manager. Does he know how? Now I'm thinking, why doesn't he just ask me? I'm right here, He's looking at the production manager. Does he know how to do this? I'm like, hey, I'm right here, mate. You'd ask me. But I was like, oh man, this is not starting off well. I was
Mhm.
nervous as hell. So the show happens, everything goes great. He's in tune. And I guess the guy he had before wasn't really a tech. He was just kind of like an assistant at the office. So all the
Yeah.
stuff was always sounded weird, or he's always out of tune, and he hated that. So
Mhm.
the first show, and then everything was in tune, everything worked, and
Yeah.
after that, he was like, he trusted me. It took him a little bit to trust me, but then like
Mm-hmm.
the following day, he goes, hey, good job. How was it like? Feet in the fire, feet first, right into the fire. I'm like, well, I went out that day, sent the run out, got a bottle of Mylanta, the NS, because I needed it because I was so nervous and just I wanted to make sure I did it. I was on top of my game, and I always,
Mm-hmm.
that you care when you care, you do your best job.
Yeah,
You try to do the
of
best you
course.
can. So
Mm-hmm.
I down my Mylanta, get my nerves down, and I just, all right, well, I'm just going to do what I do, and I just try to be the best at it. And sure enough, at the end of the tour, everybody was coming up to me saying, hey man, thanks for doing such a good job. Lou has been this is the nicest Lou has ever been to
Wow.
everyone. Like, he's
Mm.
calm. And then eventually he'd do like 3-4 hour sound checks. That's the
Yeah.
kind, because everything had to be perfect.
Uh,
So
uh,
then with
I
that,
hate that.
yeah, so it went from like 3 to 4 hour sound checks to no sound checks.
Tell me about how when you went in the green room to ask what guitar you wanted to use and who was in there.
Oh yeah, just one cool one scenario. We were doing a festival in Athens with Elvis Costello
Mm-hmm.
and David Bowie. Like, holy smokes, what the hell?
Mm.
I'm in the middle of all these legends, these
Mm-hmm.
icons and music. And so I'm like, all right, it's like, 5-10 minutes before show. I run up to the dressing room, I knock on a door, and I open it, and and then there's David Bowie and Lou Reed. They're standing there talking, and I open the door, and they both look at me. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Wow.
I forgot what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
So I said, oh yeah, Lou. And he's like, John.
Amazing.
I say, what guitar do you want to start with? He goes, let's start with Goldie. I'm like, all right, cool. He goes, oh,
Mm-hmm.
do you know David? I'm like, I'm like, no. He was like, oh, David, this is my tech, Johnny. He's like, oh, how are you? I'm like, oh, I'm great. It's a pleasure to meet you. I said, all right, well, I'm sorry, I got to run. We've got a show. He's like, oh, okay. So he closed the door, and
Mm-hmm.
I just stood there like, wow,
More my Lanta.
that was David. That was Ziggy Stardust. I just met,
Wow.
a legend.
Yeah.
And then
Nice.
immediately the next day, I got in touch with my sister Jeanette, because she was in high school, and Ziggy Stardust was, was huge, and she had the
Mm-hmm.
haircut, the dyed red hair. She loved David Bowie. And I said, guess who I met? She's like, who? I go, David Bowie. And she's like, oh my god, I hate you. Oh my god,
Yeah.
oh my god, David Bowie. So working with Lou was definitely a game changer for me. It made me
Awesome. Yeah.
bring up my game, and like, be
Mm-hmm.
focused.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't, like I do with every gig, 'cause I smoke, and
Mm-hmm.
usually when I start a new gig, I stay pretty clean. I stay clean for like the first maybe week or so until I get my gig nailed down. Then when I start feeling a little more comfortable and I know what I'm doing, you can find your time.
It's okay.
Yeah, you can find
It's
your
okay
time.
to smoke.
Yeah, you find your time when you're like, okay, I got this much time. I could smoke a
Mm-hmm.
little and just chill.
You got edibles,
Yeah. So that's Lou. By the end of my touring with Lou, he was such a good guy. He's really cool, smart. He knew his
Mm-hmm.
gear, man. That guy knew his gear. He had an ear. He had this ear, like, I didn't know. He could tell, like, if
Yeah.
something was slightly off, just a hair. Like, he's like,
Yeah.
my amp sounds a little funny. Could you check it out? I'm like, sure. So I go back there, look at the tubes, they're all firing up, and then like, oh, this one looks
Mm-hmm.
like it's a little askew. Just a hair, like, kind of make sure
Mm-hmm.
they're all in there. He goes, what'd you do? Sounds great. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
just moved his tube about a centimeter this way, make sure it was in, and he was like, oh yeah, great.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. I'm like, wow, this guy has an
Yeah.
ear. How did he hear that?
Yeah. I worked for a couple of guys like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing. But that was a highlight of my career, was meeting and working with Lou, and just kind of like, almost like friends in a way, because once in a while he goes,
Mm-hmm.
hey Johnny, you got one of them funny cigarettes? I'm like, sure, man.
Mm-hmm.
Roll up a doob, like, here you go, Lou. And then he just, we'd shoot the shit and talk sometimes. And one funny moment was, we're on stage, and the local promoter rep was there talking to Lou and telling him, all right, we have this and that in your dressing room, this and that. And Lou was like, okay, he goes, could you please not refer to the water closet as the Lou, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's laughing, like, aha. And I said, or the John. And he was
Yeah,
like, looking at me,
that's
he goes,
right.
ah, he started laughing.
Yeah.
And that's when the ice broke, and we just kind of like
Yeah.
almost like friends in a way. And it was
Uh-huh.
such
How special. That's
an
awesome.
honor just to sit there and talk with Lou Reed. It's like little things, you know, and sitting there
course.
watching him do interviews, and he's like just looking at this interviewer and being like, "This interview's over," and he would just get up and walk away. I was like, "Yes."
Mhm. Yeah.
He was ruthless that way. But like I said,
Mhm.
we went from 3 hour sound checks to no sound checks. Where, hey, I was on the phone with Lou. You guys were doing sound check. Oh, I was like, great, cool, man. You know, is he happy? Everything cool? He's like, he wanted to know if that was you playing the guitar. I was like, well, yeah, you know, that was his tech. I was checking his guitar.
Mhm.
And he's like, he's not coming in for sound check. He's like,
Oh, good.
he stopped doing sound checks because everything sounded
sounded
so
good.
good, like how he wanted it. He didn't have to come in anymore.
Johnny does
Well, that's
never brags on himself. This is very unusual.
Mhm.
So I'm glad that you take credit where credit is due because you're very humble.
No.
So that's
Well, that's the
awesome.
way.
It's special.
That's the way it should be. Bands should
Yeah.
not come to soundcheck.
Yeah,
Kiss never comes to soundcheck. Deep Purple never comes to soundcheck. Iron Maiden doesn't come to soundcheck.
Right.
right.
There's no time for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, these bands that do soundchecks for hours on end, that's just a bunch of BS.
It's a waste of
Right.
time.
It's all different anyway later on during the show. You know, I mean,
Exactly.
you can set the parameters and everything, but
Uh-huh.
it will be slightly different, and then you dial it in. First song, boom.
Yeah.
If you have the right monitor guys and everything in place, right?
Do you
Do
have
it.
time for this?
Um,
We'll get
yeah,
going soon.
well, we got like probably 10 to 15 more minutes, then I got to run.
Thank you for your time.
Okay,
You're
yeah,
so
thanks for your
awesome.
time, man.
Yeah,
It's, I
you're the
know
best.
you probably got things going on.
He's
It's
a dad,
Saturday.
a husband, a badass, a realtor, Gene Simmons tech.
Yeah, you got so much
You're
going
amazing.
on.
Shit's happening now, yeah.
That's
We'll
great.
start rehearsals. We're loading in on Monday. And then
Awesome.
Then rehearsals and then to South America.
South America.
Dude, that's
wow.
gonna be amazing.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. How long is that tour in South America?
Only 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Then
in
we
South
come
America.
back. The other thing I do is I production manage the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp. I don't know if you ever have you ever heard of the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp? You should check it out. There's a movie.
Yes.
There's a movie about it on Amazon Prime.
Oh my
And
gosh.
if you ever want, David Fishoff is the guy that hires me. He wrote this book.
Oh wow.
I probably can get you a copy of it, but this is some good stuff also in business in general, you know,
Okay.
how to run a business and things like that. And I just did the recent camp. It's like a 5-day thing. And you have rock star counselors that rehearse with the campers. So there's people that pay money to have an experience at rehearsal, and they rehearse 2 songs. This was the Led Zeppelin camp, right? And so we had Kim Tahil from Soundgarden was there.
One of my favorites
So
ever.
so they're doing like Q&A. They're doing Q&As, and then they rehearse. The bands prepare with their counselors to rehearse with Kim Tahil, and then ultimately play the one show at the Whiskey. That's their headline show.
Awesome.
So there's like 13 campers, and then they get to play 2 songs each with Kim. And, you know, then you have like Rudy Sasso, we had Carmine Appice, Vinny Appice on drums. And it's a whole really cool, fun experience for them, an environment to play instruments. Some of those people only know 3 chords, and then the counselors prepare them for that show, you know.
How
So
awesome.
That's fun.
it's really cool. Yeah, it's been
it is.
I might have to attend Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp.
You should.
I would love to.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
we're thinking about maybe making our way back out to LA because it seems like all of our favorite people live there. His sisters live there. You live there. All our friends live there. I'm like, man, we have so many kick-ass connections there. And so I think it's time for us to boogie. We have one more year here, my lace on my tattoo shop, and then it's time to find a new opportunity. So we're just trying to manifest that goal and see where life takes us. But
totally. And I mean, John already knows the dynamic here. It's not like new territory for you. You know what to
Right.
expect here and how it can be, right? It's not the easiest.
Right.
You gotta have some income here, and you gotta
Yeah.
pay your mortgage or your rent, and
California,
then everything
especially.
gets more expensive. Where are you in San Antonio?
we're San Antonio right now.
San Antonio.
I like having a private studio, but it was more just because of COVID, and I'd rather work with other artists and be around other people and, feed off of each other. And it gets a little isolating being on my own, even though my clients really prefer that setting. But It's a little detrimental to my mental health just being alone all the time. Because Johnny's got a 9 to 5 gig that he works, so it's kind of like I'm ready to branch out and be back out with other creative people. So we'll see what happens. But
I think that will be good for you.
yeah, for sure.
And there's a lot of tattoo artists out here that are good, and I guess there's the big scene here. I imagine.
Yeah.
I think with your skills, I think you will do good. You will always have
Thank you.
clients.
Yeah. She's always gonna have clients. Like a lot of her clientele, most of them, I would
people
say about
travel.
85 to 90% of them are from out of town. They fly in just to get work by her, and then they leave. They go home to like, North Dakota or Oklahoma or California or
Pretty cool.
everywhere.
You can leverage the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
We have contacts, right? It's like a community. We want to help each other out as much as possible. It's the same for real estate. It's the same for your stuff, and same for roadies.
Yeah.
Hey, this guy's good. Maybe he's available to do this. We're looking for someone.
Right.
You have to think, who could be doing that? Who could we call, right?
Yeah.
Call Berger or call John.
Exactly.
See if he's available.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, someone wants to buy a house here or sell his house. Call Berger.
Yeah.
Hey, keep me in mind for your rock and roll clientele if they need any furniture.
No, totally.
Yeah.
You know what? I haven't been on your website as in how to order it. I'd like to look at it.
I just do everything.
And-
I manage everything on my own, but
Custom.
yeah, just all custom. But on my website, I have a portfolio of everything that I've made.
I need a coffee table eventually with something
What
cool.
would you get,
Yeah.
Michael? I was going to
Yeah,
ask you, what
that's-
would you pick?
That's a good question. I mean,
Right?
why not Kiss, right?
Hell yeah, that's what I'm talking
How about a table with smeared
Freak
big
out.
face on it, just like
Check this out. How about
oh my god, he's probably got so much cool stuff, man.
Ew, I wonder
this
what cool
one?
books are
How
on that
about this
shelf.
one?
Yes! Yes! Oh my god,
That's the
hair.
table.
Legendary.
That's the table.
Yep, that's a legend
Legendary.
right there. That's classic.
Awesome.
That was the classy one. That was the first one.
That's the first
Hell
one,
yeah.
huh?
That's-
Remember
Amazing.
where they did that photo shoot in that area where that was on a cemetery?
That's awesome.
Amazing.
Well, I would be honored to make you something anytime. So
Yeah.
just let me know.
That's killer, man.
Yeah.
You got Les Paul
Huh?
from back there. Is that was that something?
Yeah,
that
that's- No, that was actually that was in my showroom, and I was
beautiful.
repping for Angle Amps. It's
all right.
it's a standard, but it has the robot tuners on it.
Oh yeah, right. The automated one.
But I wanna get rid of them. But
Yeah.
it's a 59 style. It's got this super fat
Wow, gorgeous.
neck. It's like cuts your blood flow off if you have it right here.
So how
It's
many
really
tables
he-
do you need? No.
It's really
I'll trade you.
it's really heavy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What
I have a
beautiful
couple other
guitar.
guitars, but they are packed away because here I don't have that much room. So
That's a gorgeous guitar, man. That's beautiful.
yeah, it's very nice.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
This one I have out. Steve
So
Morse.
cool.
Steve Morse from Deep Purple gifted that one.
Awesome. I was going to ask if anyone had ever
it's
gifted
like
you a guitar, and you.
Yeah, that's it.
That's
Wow.
so
It's a Y2D. That's a signature model that he used. And I went up to the Ernie Ball factory, Music Man,
Uh-huh.
and I was picking the neck and the wood and everything. It was super nice of him to do. So just pick whatever you like and grab it.
cool. That's so
Wow.
cool.
And-
That's so cool.
Then
That's a nice guitar. Look at all this cool stuff he has, man. It's
Michael's so
amazing.
cool.
Hey,
I knew you guys would be friends. Y'all
Look
are
at
the
that.
talking about Deep Purple, that's Roger Glover's Vigier bass.
Wow.
It's a French
Wow.
company, but that's a signature model.
Right.
He signed it.
color.
He signed it back here.
Oh wow.
Awesome.
Oh, sign it. That's great, man.
Yeah.
Look at that.
So I'm gonna see him here shortly.
Really amazing.
Yeah.
I gotta go grab something on that note, and I know you gotta go, but I gotta share a real quick Deep Purple story with you.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, Steve Morse. How was he? I mean, this guy's a guitar,
Nice guy.
guitar legend.
Yes.
You know.
Super nice, but he knows his stuff.
Right,
Obviously, he's not in the band anymore now.
Right. Right.
They got a new guy,
let me get my
Simon.
headphones back on for this.
Check this out.
So since I was a little kid, I had been going to this record store here in town called CD Trader. I bought
Yeah.
some of my first Kiss records, first metal records. I try not to whack Johnny with this. This is a one of one
Wow.
hand carved, wooden sign, right? And so it was always hanging in the record store. Baby. And so behind the counter, and I was always like, I have to buy that for my dad. Please, how much? Name your price. I'll save my money. And the guy's like, not for sale, not for sale. It was made for me. 20 years later, whatever, the owner of the record store passed. And the shop was shut down. His wife took and sold all the records. I wound up meeting up with his son years later, and I was like, Gordon, whatever happened to that sign, Deep Purple, or that carved Deep Purple sign? I have to get that for my dad. That was like my goal in life, was to get that for him. And he goes, oh, it's at my house. You want to trade a tattoo for it? I was like, yes! And so
nice.
He never even got tattooed. He wound up gifting it to me. So Deep Purple
That's
is
awesome.
one of my all-time favorites. So everything
Really?
comes full circle. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah.
It's a great band.
Thank you so much for your time. You are so awesome.
Yeah.
I was standing at the Starbucks on the Kiss cruise, and Michael goes, "Oh, King Diamond." I was like, "Oh yeah, you like King Diamond?" He's like, "I did the Abigail tour with Destruction," and it was just like a immediate friendship. Some people, and that's how it was with Johnny and I too. Like some people you meet and you're like, "You're my people," And I immediately
totally. I
felt
agree.
that with both of you, and we're just
No, that's it.
we're really honored
Well,
to have
well,
talked to you.
we're now officially friends.
That's right.
Yeah, it's amazing.
We'll
It's a pleasure.
we'll stay in touch.
Yeah,
For
for
sure.
sure. It's a pleasure to meet you, man.
Likewise, John.
You're a legend. I
Yes,
mean,
you
you've
both
done
are.
so much, and you work with so many great people. That's really cool, man. And your success is well deserved, man. That's amazing. You work hard for it, and to get where you're at. It takes, like I tell Britt, I go, being a crew guy, working on a crew, touring. That's a breed. It's a breed of people. You can't It's not for everyone. You got to be a
tough.
certain kind of person to be able to, like you said, you got to be thick skinned. You got to be
Yeah.
able to take criticism and not go in a corner and cry
Don't
like,
take it
"Oh, this guy doesn't
personal."
like me." You just gotta, you know what?
Good.
This gig's done. Then tomorrow's another gig. I'll just do better. Try to do my best. So
Especially when you have a 7-foot monster coming over to you,
the demon.
dripping and blood, and come over here.
That's so cool. That's so
You
cool.
better not be sensitive.
You're a brave man.
exactly.
You're
Yeah.
a very brave man.
You're just kicking back.
That's
Yeah.
right. Well, hopefully we will see you at several of the End of the Road tour shows.
Yes.
For sure, Austin, and hopefully Dallas too. All the Texas shows. Maybe
Yeah,
we'll
let
be
me
able
know.
to fly out to one of the other shows, but we will be at least one or two of the gigs.
Yeah.
We'll get you
Sure.
some VIP treatment, okay?
Awesome.
Oh
Amazing.
boy.
Make
And
it
you
happen.
as well.
Amazing.
So if
Yeah.
anyway, thank you again.
Yes,
Can't
thanks
thank you
again.
enough.
Thank you guys. You guys rock. Thank you so
You
much,
rock.
all right?
You're
Stay in
awesome.
touch.
You rock too. Thanks.
You real.
Have a good day.
Like
You
See you
too,
soon.
man. Have a
Adios.
good day. See ya,
Bye.
man.
Bye.
See ya.
Thank you guys for listening. It's been an honor having Michael on the show.
Yes.
He was great.
He's great.
All of the awesome stories that he had, and it's really cool to see that he still has like a side hustle, even though he's Gene Simmons tech. He's like working super hard. That's how we are too. We try to put these things out and talk to our friends and edit everything. We do everything ourselves, and we just want to hang out and spread the word about cool stuff and keep rock and roll alive a little bit.
Yeah, and he's smart. I mean, having a side gig like that, a side hustle,
Yeah.
because the touring industry is so, it's not, I guess the word is volatile. It's not certain. Like you'll
Right.
have 2
It's not
months,
all year
3
round.
months. Yeah, 3 months, 4 months of good touring, and then just dead. So
Mhm.
having that time off and doing something else is a smart idea. And he's a very smart man. He's awesome, man. He's got some cool
Yeah.
gear. He's met some cool people. He's worked for some very cool people at Deep Purple. Working with Deep Purple is awesome.
Oh, it's so awesome.
How
Yeah.
badass.
Some of the
See-
most legendary bands.
Yeah,
So
just-
cool. You guys are such cool people. Oh. That's
You're
so
cooler.
Cool. Oh, I don't know.
Yes, you
No
are.
way. So that was really cool talking to you, Michael. And thank you guys for tuning in and listening. So next time we are going to take some questions.
Our next episode will be some album reviews.
Yeah.
we got tons of vinyl that we picked up in the last few months, and we want to give you our opinions, I guess, on them.
Yeah,
And,
so
yeah.
if you have any suggestions of albums that we should review, or if you're like, hey, this band is awesome, or whatever, let us know and we'll check it out.
Yeah, there's so much music out there.
I know, I want more. Or if you have a kick-ass band, send us a record, we'll send you
that
something
too.
back so we can be pen pals. So, yeah, let us know.
That'd be great.
Cool. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Thanks for watching and tuning in or listening.
If you're watching our silly video.
or listening.
Check this out on YouTube if you want to see Johnny's awesome edits, because he puts in a lot of funny videos and stuff. And wow, sometimes I'm really impressed by your editing skills.
Thanks, it's fun. It's fun.
But it takes a while. That's why we only come out with one podcast every few weeks.
Yes.
So thank you. Please subscribe to our channel and like our videos. Thank you, Michael, for being on The Haunted Chapel, and thank you guys for listening.
Yes.
Stay heavy.
And stay haunted.